Hey, so now we're live.
Welcome, everybody, to Saturdays with Tara. I'm Mary Beth. You're at the Law of Attraction Club on the web at theloaclub.com. With me this morning is Robin, and he'll be bringing through Tara for us this morning. I want to remind you that if you have a question or a comment, to unmute yourself if you're in the live call here, and otherwise you can type in the group chat to the right of your screen. All right. Welcome, Robin and Tara, and over to you.
Welcome to you, and whether you are on this live broadcast or whether you are viewing this later, welcome to you. And we would encourage you to the understanding that, of course, you created this event, you created this community, and that might seem a little strange given that you are not one of the leading actors perhaps in it, but we promise you that you created this intersection. And we would say also, before we kick off here perhaps, that we are enjoying this arrangement wherein we get to explore a given topic, a really fundamental and basic topic, for a week here with different channels. It is an interesting and engaging process for us. And of course for you also, you get to ask your questions, you get to challenge things, and of course we are enjoying all of that mix up with here with you. And today's subject, of course, is why is feeling good so important? And this one, for many years after he began intersecting with us, had no real idea what we meant by nothing is more important than you feel good. Now he's beginning to get it. Some of you are beginning to get it. And we say beginning here because it's a process. As you first get the idea, it takes a while to settle in. It takes a little while to assimilate into that fabric of yours. But you are beginning to get it. And so that is why it's worthy here of a revisit, because that process can proceed. That process is ripe for engagement, for rediscussion. And we're going to start here from the cosmic view of everything, the fundamentals, the absolutes, the truth of who you are, because we want you to really know about who you are and the power that you have. We want you to see that simply feeling good is the main tent, and everything else is just a sideshow. As with this topic and all of our topics, of course, we go back to those fundamentals, because it is from that place that you get the best opportunity to understand the nature of who you are. And this topic gives us just one more chance to explore you and your essence, because you are, at that essence, a non-physical entity that thinks and thereby creates this world of yours, unique to you, into beingness. You are the consciousness that has dreamed it up and continues to dream it up. You are the consciousness that creates this particular and unique version of this physical game that you are playing. And the you that is doing this is just one part of a bigger you that simultaneously thinks and creates in many worlds and many galaxies. And that bigger you is part of the collective consciousness of all that is. You are an always connected part of the source of everything. I want you to think here just for a minute about that connection back to, through a series of versions of you, if you will, back to the you that is part of the collective consciousness. See, that connection exists. Without it, you would not exist. You can never sever yourself from that because it's a fundamental part of who you are. So you can, if you like, step away from a knowledge of your connection. And what happens when you do that? Your feelings turn negative. And here we are we not, at the crux of this story here, this subject. Think about this. What constitutes feeling bad? What is that in you? Could you describe what it is that that feeling is all about? How does it come about? When you are feeling under stress, what does that mean? And you can see that it is all bound up with that connection of which we spoke, that connection back to the bigger you, that connection back to the all that is. Because when you are, if you like, choking off that connection, when you are stepping away from that connection, when you are restricting that communication, you feel bad. When you are allowing that connection, you feel good. It's as simple as that. That connection is the element behind all of this. So how did you dream up this physical game, this particular one, that this, if you like, this endpoint you, this consciousness you that is engaged in? You made belief choices about why you're here. You made decisions. You decided what's important to you. You've made those belief choices about everything in your experience. Your story, and we're going to talk about that story in some detail here today, is constructed entirely from those choices. It's the story about the physical you, and it's the story about the matching version of the world that wraps itself around you. And by the way, there are no right or wrong stories. There is just your story here and now. Your story may be that it's just a physical world and that's it. You may be a materialist. You may be an agnostic. You may say there is nothing beyond the physical. You may be searching in the physical for the answers to everything. And there are many in this one's world, perhaps in yours also, that do that. Many in the scientific community speak as if everything comes from the physical you. Well, it is one story. Your story may include things about finding your true life purpose and fulfilling that destiny. Your story may be that you are here to serve God. Your story may be that you are here to serve others. You may have a story about the devil and sin and falling from grace and falling into a state of unworthiness, falling into a state of damnation. And your story may be about that worthiness and the keeping of it and the being of it, and thereby inheriting something at the end that is different, eternal life, eternal, if you like, connection with God. Your story may be that you are here to learn things and move to a higher level of consciousness. Your story may be about karma and the influence of past lives. Your story may be about astrology and the alignment of the planets and the fact of your birth date and how that all influences everything around you and affects your world. You may have a story about extraterrestrials. You may have a story about what food is good for you and what you should be eating. Your story may be, as we discussed last week, how you heal yourself, how you maintain good health. Your story may be about conspiracy theories, about Illuminati that are here controlling you secretly. Your story may be about Feng Shui and the alignment of your physical world and how it affects you. Your story may be that one political party is right and the other is wrong. Your story may be that you live on a flat earth. Your story may be that you get old and decay and die. You see, these are all stories, and some of those elements may be in your story and others may not. But let's take astrology, that one that we mentioned there, as an example, because for most of his life this one thought of astrology as nonsense. He can recall watching the late, in his world, Carl Sagan, talking about how ridiculous it was to believe that planets and the movement of the planets and the extremely weak variations in gravitational force that could be exerted by them would have an effect upon your life, your world. And then as he learned more about the fundamental nature of everything, he began to understand it is simply a belief choice and no more right or wrong than his own story or stories. His story, perhaps also like many of yours, includes things like time and space and gravity and a round planet Earth and a Milky Way galaxy in a huge cosmos. So what is more strange about any of that, or less strange about any of that, than astrology? What determines what is science fact, scientific fact? What determines whether something is pseudoscience? What determines whether something is nonsense? You see, none of these belief choices are absolute. All of them are optional. Now, your world may be similar to his in many respects, but each of you has your own version of everything. These stories, these are your sideshows. They are magnificent sideshows, of course. Incredibly detailed and engaging sideshows, but sideshows nonetheless. We are not, through any of this, encouraging you to disengage from that story. We want to remind you of that. While we are pointing out here, of course, that there is much about these different stories that you can choose to believe or not, we are not trying to say in any way that your story is not valuable. It is the context, you see, for who you are. You and your story are in this dance together. You cannot be without having that story around you. So we are not, as we said, trying to get you to disengage from your story. Quite the opposite. We are encouraging you to engage in it, to play in it, whatever it is, but in the way that you originally intended, shall we say, in the way that gives you more options, in a way that allows you to more easily seek that which you want. And we mean by keeping everything in perspective. You see, when you came into this game, when you entered into this physical space-time reality, you knew that you would have the ability to change everything or anything. And so, as we say here, we're not trying to talk you out of your story. We're just here to remind you of the options that you have. And as you get locked into your story and find yourself thereby constrained with it, within it, we would say, remember who you are. Remember who you are. We want you to at all times remember that no part of this game confines you with limited options. Stories are not absolute. You can pick a new sideshow at any time. And as you discover parts of your story are fencing you in, And we want to ensure that you understand here, there will always be parts like that. There are even parts like that in our story, a different order of magnitude, but they are there. They're what we call contrast. As you discover parts of your story are constraining you, your ever-present and infallible emotion guidance system kicks in. And then guess what? You don't feel good. This is your starting point. Your story is your context, but now you see we are entering the main tent. Creating, you see, is what you do. It's what you came here to do. You came here to experience the joy of creating in this different context. As you intersect with others, you are interacting with them within the boundaries you have set. You mix it up and you have experiences, some wanted, some unwanted. This leads to new desires, new choices, and your world reversions itself around you. As you make new choices, you step into a new version of you, and a new version of reality, if you like, so-called reality, wraps itself around you. This is the fun of it. This is how you create in all or any of your stories, and it's why it doesn't matter what story you have chosen. It doesn't matter which story you choose. And here's where your feelings come in. They are your ever-present, infallible compass. Remember we asked you before to think about what your feelings are. They are an automatic part of you. They are a function of your connection to Source. And if you are heading in the direction of creating what you want in your experience, your heart sings. You're on that feeling good side of the line. You're in the range from peace to pleasure, to ecstasy, to delight, to appreciation, to joy, to play, to fun. And any work you are doing to achieve this in that state will feel effortless. It will be like throwing away the oars and floating downstream. It will be not rowing against the current. It will feel easy. It will feel like the world is opening up before you, and it will be. In this place, doors open for you that you never knew existed. And that is why it is easy, that is why it is fun, that is why it is joyful. But if you are heading away from what you want, if you are creating negatively, your feelings will match. You will be from boredom, this restless feeling that nothing's exciting, there's nothing to do, down through unhappiness, fear and anger, down to utter despair. You are on the negative side of the spectrum. And in this place, everything is a struggle. You are now rowing upstream, you see. You are now moving away from where you want to be. Now this is where it's hard work. So now, can you begin to see now why how you feel is so important? If the absolute core reason you came here was to experience the joy of creating what you want, and you are heading in the opposite direction, nothing can be more important than changing course. Let us repeat that. If the real reason you are here is to experience the joy of creating, and you are heading away from that, what can be more important than that? And the answer is, there's nothing about your story that's more important than feeling good. There are no shoulds, no have-tos, no must-dos, on Earth, on a physical world, in a non-physical world, anywhere, that can possibly take priority over simply turning and heading in the direction of what you want. Simply heading and turning in the direction of what you want. So, there are those among you in this one's world, at least, who say that your feelings cannot be the main intent. It's too superficial, too trivial, that there has to be some more lofty or divine purpose for all of this. Well, we would take you back to who you are. At your heart, at your core, at your essence, you are a creator and a joy seeker. And there is fundamentally no entity here or anywhere that has made decisions about what you should or should not do, or wants anything from you other than to see you rejoicing in this game you are creating. There is no entity, be it God or any other sort of physical or non-physical entity, that has made a decision about what is your purpose in life, that what you are here to do. You see, it's your call. You are the one in charge here. If you can feel how amazing is this power that you have, then can you see that it cannot come any more lofty or divine than exercising that power in creating what it is that you want? And it is not power over others, it is power to create. It is power to create others, if you will, in your world, in which you would, with whom you will dance, with whom you will intersect and play the game. So it cannot be that your feelings are superficial. They are telling you whether you are here to do what you came to do. There are those of you that think being over-focused on how you feel is too self-centered. Well, let's assure you that there is no one shared world. This world of yours is the movie of your life. And you are the writer of the screenplay, the director, and the leading actor all rolled into one. You are fulfilling all of those functions. The particular versions of those other actors who are showing up in your scenes, the scenes in your movie, are faithfully following your screenplay and your direction. And of course, different versions of you are likewise showing up in their movies. But we're talking about your movie, and in this one you are calling the shots. By definition, this is all centered around you. You see, this is the movie of your life on Earth. You wrote the screenplay, you're directing the movie, you have the starring role. So, it is centered around you, by definition. So, of course, being self-centered is exactly what we're talking about here. Then there are those that say, in this one's world, that we are promoting selfishness, perhaps in your world also. Well, once again, this is a one-world concept. And even in that context, selfishness implies that there's a limit to everything, lack, that by you taking things, you're denying others. And since by law of attraction, there's no limit to what any of you can manifest, there can be no lack, can be no limits, can be no deprivation. Further, what somebody else does or doesn't manifest has nothing to do with you. What somebody else does or doesn't manifest has nothing to do with you. They get what they attract, and you have no control over that. You have zero control over that. When you truly get who you are, you know that things like selfishness and blame and being a victim, these are all totally invalid concepts. They have no place. There is no meaning to those words except in a one-world sense, a one physical world sense in which there are limits, and there are none. So, what we are promoting to you is the idea that your story is not a fixture. While we encourage you to cherish, nourish, appreciate, anticipate, pre-pave, create in advance, appreciate in advance the good parts, what we are on about here in this discussion is that we are suggesting also that you open up to the idea that you can rewrite the not so good parts. Because while we applaud your story, we are trying to loosen your grip on it to the extent that you can see that you are still at choice. You can throw out the whole story if you like and choose another. And in different versions of you, of course, you are doing that. If you can imagine it, you can do it. So, it's not a fixture. Choice, as always, is a part of your life. As we say, it's your middle name. It has to be. And how do you know when you're heading into those not so good parts? As we have talked about here, it's very simple. It doesn't feel good. Pay attention to those feelings. Don't settle for less than you want. We want to just do a little aside here and talk about developing the awareness habit. You see, we are saying here, don't settle for less than you want. Pay attention to your feelings. And yet, if you practice ignoring your feelings, if you practice ignoring that state of tension, if you practice living in a world of quiet desperation, then you can get to the point where that feeling becomes so familiar to you that it appears like it is nothing. And as we say, we want you to develop the awareness habit. We want you to build into your subconscious automatic processes, as well as all the things that create this world around you. We want you to build in this feeling meter, this emotional guidance system. Allow yourself to know how you feel. Allow yourself to be triggered by negative feelings. Allow yourself to find a decision point at that point. Allow yourself to recognize that a new step, a new story is possible. So find processes that work for you. And it doesn't matter what process you pick. It doesn't matter what you select to do about it. We say find processes that feel good, that help you focus on what you want and use them and use them and use them and modify them and make them your process until they become this habit you have, until they're simply part of who you are, until you've built them into the fabric of your living life. You have built them into you. You have made them a part of you. And you no longer have to consciously apply them. You recognize immediately when you are heading upstream, and you turn and head downstream. You see, it is a process or processes of learning, of putting into habit form some of these changes, because nothing is more important than that you feel good. Nothing, nothing, nothing. No thing at all. And as always we say, of course, lighten up about all of this. Be easy about everything. Come at life as if it's truly the game that it is. Relax more. Appreciate more. Laugh more. Make feeling good your life's purpose. If you have to settle on any purpose, you want to be obsessive about anything, here's what we suggest. Make it about feeling good. No matter what story you chose, you can always choose another one. Be less mesmerized by any particular story and more aware of how you feel about it. You see, it doesn't matter which story you pick. Just don't settle for the bad parts. Allow yourself to move in the direction of feeling good. Pivot away from negative thoughts and imagine what you want into beingness. Pivot away from negative thoughts and imagine what you want into beingness. Be aware of the negative thought, change direction. If you've dug a hole for yourself, stop digging. Set your intentions once more on feeling good. Feeling good is more than just a good idea. It defines the quality of every part of the life you're living. It defines your life. It defines every aspect of your life. It will define the ease with which you part this life, with which you transition at the end of it, or even, and the nature of that transition. It defines everything. The main intent, you see, has never been that physical stuff you're manifesting, nor even the non-physical stuff that you're making up. The main intent is you, with your hands in the clay of all that is, creating your next masterpiece. So, in all of this, we say, remember the importance of feeling good. So, Mary Beth, we would pass back to you for any comments or questions that people may have. So it seems that Mary Beth may be interrupted at this point by some workmen near her. So if you have a question or a comment, now would be an excellent time to unmute yourself and engage in this discussion. If not, we would say that we have enjoyed this opportunity to be here with you. We have enjoyed this opportunity once again talk of the importance of feeling good. In some ways, of course, we talk about it as separate from you, and it is not, as we have conveyed here, hopefully, in this discussion today. It is a part of who you are. It is the nature of who you are. It's simply an indicator of the degree of connection you have back to that link of all that is. It is simply your emotional guidance system. When you feel good, you are heading to where you want to go. When you feel bad, you are not, and nothing is more important than heading in the direction of your desires. And yes, Giora, you created difficulties in the connection. We understand. And so it is with great pleasure, of course, that we leave you with that thought, and we encourage you into that process, developing an awareness of when you are not feeling good and paying attention to that. Nothing is more important. And so from that perspective, from this point, we are complete. Thank you.